Walk the World's Rim, Chapter 10, Quarrels. The gray robe was sick, said the villagers. Not the gray robe that was thin as a cornstalk, but the other one. All night he had been sick. The dark one had left before dawn with 2 of the men from the village. No one knew when they would return. Some said the dark one was not coming back. Where had Esteban gone and why? Chaco squinted at the pale horizon as if he could find the answer there. Fray Marcos called. Chaco ducked into the hut. Fray Ornado lay on the sleeping mat. His breath came in shallow gasps. Sweat rolled down his face and his hands twitched on his chest. He has been like this most of the night, said Fray Marcos. Have you made medicine? Whispered Chaco. I have done all I can, but he will not be able to travel for a while. I am sure he will recover, but the delay is serious. That is why I have sent Esteban ahead. You sent him? The words came softly in a breath of relief. Chaco had carried the fear that Esteban had ran away. The worry lines deepened in the priest's thin face. I pray I have not made a mistake. So much depends on our success. He explained the system they devised to send messages. As soon as Esteban found news of the trail to Cibola, he would send back one of the villagers with a cross. The size of the cross would indicate the greatness of the news. A small cross would mean he was still searching. One large, as his hand, would mean good news. He suggested it, the priest finished. It seemed the best thing to do, but now I wonder. Durantes warned he was unreliable. Esteban will not fail you. But he was not sure that 2 days later, when a pair of Indians staggered into the village carrying a cross larger than a man. Fray Marcos was overjoyed. He must be at the edge of Cibola itself or very close to it. Chaco tried to tell him that Esteban could not yet have reached Aunt Maria's village, and Cibola was far beyond that. Fray Marcos was too excited to listen. Fray Ornado will be himself in a week or two or so, but we cannot wait so long, not with such good news. I shall arrange for him to be guided back to Ch.10. He sent the Indian messengers back to Esteban with instructions to wait where he was. Tell him we follow at once. But Esteban did not wait. At each village, the gray robe was expected. The dark one had asked them to prepare food and lodgings for the gray robe who followed. But Esteban himself was always just beyond the next village, the next river, the next mountain. The farther they went, the more furious Fray Marcos grew at his disobedience to orders. Twice he had sent other Indians to Esteban with instructions to wait. If you go on alone, do you think you can catch the slave? He asked Chaco. I will try. Though he'd grown since he'd last traveled this trail, Esteban's legs were still stronger and his strength greater. Then go, and wherever you find him, tell him I order him to remain there until I come. Yes, Father, he hesitated. Fray Marcos continually stopped to question the Indians about the country to the east and west. Chaco translated both questions and answers. Who will interpret for you? I will do my best with signs. Go now, my son. Without the priest to slow him, Chaco covered ground twice as quickly. Late the second afternoon, he caught up with Esteban and more than 40 Indians who had joined him along the way. Esteban shook the rattle in greeting. How does it go, little one? And where is the good father? At his pace, at least 3 days back, perhaps 4. So far. Then we shall camp early tonight. Choose a good place with plenty of water. Fray Marcos orders you to wait until he comes. Esteban closed his eyes and breathed deeply as if testing the northern breeze. I have far to go, little one. But you will wait? No. Chaco's chin dropped and his feet took root. Esteban moved on. The Indians crowded past, laughing and singing. Chaco followed slowly. He made no effort to catch up with Esteban. There would be time for argument when camp was made. Until then, he must accustom himself to this man who behaved as Esteban should, but spoke like a stranger. They halted at the edge of the steep-banked stream. With his ready laugh and a few bantering words, Esteban had even the idlers hurrying for firewood and filling water gourds. Before the sun touched the mountain ridge, they were sharing corn cakes and roast rabbit. The Pima gathered at separate fires to sing, talk, and play the bean game. Everything was so much the way it had been before that Chaco half expected to see the three seniors at their evening prayers. He sprawled beside Esteban and sighed contentedly. It goes well, Esteban. To be sure. He squinted along the stick he was carving and nodded in approval. I don't mean that, said Chaco. I mean this journey to Cibola. Esteban nodded gravely. Yes, that too goes well. Even better than I had expected. Then why must you spoil it? Esteban's hands were still. What I do will not change the Father's plans. Then you will wait here for him? No. He placed the finished carving on the ground and selected another stick from the bundle at his side. They looked like arrow shafts, except that Esteban was carving three waving lines down their length. Something tugged at Chaco's memory. You must wait. Chaco frowned at the carved stick. I told Fray Marcos you would not fail him. And I will not. I said that I would find the trail to Cibola and prepare the Indians for his arrival. I shall keep my promise. But you will not obey his order. Esteban looked up in mock surprise. Has Fray Marcos arrived already? If not, how can he give me an order? I hear only your words. How do I know they came from my master? So that is why you are so eager to come on alone? And the reason I stay well beyond the range of the Father's voice. The gods smile on you, said Chaco bitterly. How fortunate that Fray Oronado became ill. Yes, for I would not have liked giving him a drink of your tea, little one. Esteban, you never would have done such a thing. Esteban shrugged. Chaco stared down at his crossed legs. Why should I doubt it? It is no more dishonorable than refusing to obey my master's orders. I am not refusing. I have been passed from master to master, first Durantes, then the Viceroy, and now Fray Marcos. I have served each well. If Fray Marcos speaks, I shall obey. But unless I hear the words directly from Father's lips, how can I be sure the orders come from him? I cannot heed every man and boy who meets me on the trail. So I follow my master's last orders. Scout the trail to Cibola and send back word of my discoveries. Esteban's private rules bound him to his master's commands, but only if he heard them from Fray Marcos himself. It was the same as when he had said nothing of being a slave. Chaco could not say it was wrong, but he felt it was not entirely right. He picked up the carved stick Esteban had finished. Your honor is like the line you carved on the shaft. It carefully avoids the knobs and knots, but there are no irregularities on the shaft. It was straight and true, unmarred except for the useless carved grooves. Once before, he'd seen arrow shafts carved like these. It is an arrow shaft. Chaco gripped it in both hands and stared at Esteban. The arrow of the buffalo hunters, to be sure. In 2 days, Esteban would reach Aunt Maria's village. He need only travel northeast until he reached the river, then follow it to the mountains and beyond to the land of the buffalo people. You're deserting. You're running away just as Durantes said you would. Esteban put down his work and gazed thoughtfully at Chaco. You think that is wrong, little one? I know it is wrong. You have been sent on a mission and now you have abandoned it. To be sure, Esteban said softly. And what of your mission, little one? Chaco could easily guide Fray Marcos to Aunt Maria's village. But what then? It was Esteban who had won the friendship of the Indians. Esteban they followed even now. Esteban would have no trouble persuading Aunt Maria's husband to guide Fray Marcos to Cibola. But Chaco was sure the Pima would risk the journey for no one else. My mission would fail, he said bitterly. We can never reach Cibola without you. The shaft in Esteban's hand snapped. He tossed it into the fire. It is no use. Your mind follows only one trail. At least it follows the trail on which it was sent. Doesn't it still follow the trail on which your father sent you? Chaco was too surprised to answer. What had this to do with Cibola or Esteban's desertion? Why did your father send you to Mexico? To learn the Spanish God. Why? So my people could overcome the spirit of misfortune. He tried to ignore the uneasy stirring of guilt. I still follow that trail. You follow your stomach, dangle Brother Solano's kitchen before your nose, and you sit slavering like a dog at a meat drying rack. And like the dog, you remain only because of the promise of food. The fear that Esteban was right only heightened the anger his guilt had raised in self-defense. Now, that's not true, he shouted. I still have many things to learn. To be sure, you have not yet learned the manners of a Don. You have not yet learned to fawn and flatter those in power or to barter for a favor. You cannot yet smile while you lie or turn traitor to your friends. Chaco jumped to his feet. I will hear no more. So you have learned one thing, to turn your back on the truth. It is not the truth. You're only bitter because of the way Durantos treated you. As for betraying friends, what are you doing now? He shouted down Esteban's attempt to interpret. The Viceroy will be furious if we fail to reach Cibola. All of Mexico is waiting for the expedition to begin. Fray Marcos said the future of Spain depends on our success. Now we will fail because you care only for your freedom. Esteban's face wore the look of a man in mourning, but his laugh was bitter and harsh. I did not know you cared so deeply for the future of Spain. What is my freedom compared to that? Then you will wait here and guide Fray Marcos to Cibola? I will lead Fray Marcos to Cibola. 1,000 thanks, Esteban. The dark head shook sadly. Do not thank me. I hoped you would come with me to the buffalo people. From there, you could easily return home. Surely you didn't think I'd leave Mexico. It is better to be a warrior in a mat hut than a beggar in the plaza. I would rather be a beggar than his tongue still curled on the word, slave. but from the look on Esteban's face, he might just as well have said it. He wished the night demons would snatch him away to be tossed forever on the north wind. Anything would be better than to stand here with the cold silence stretching between them. "There is a moon tonight," he said at last. "Fray Marcos will be eager to hear that you are waiting. I shall start back." Not until he was beyond sight of the campfires did Chaco realize that Esteban had not answered. He had not even said, "Go with God." Perhaps the night demons would get him. Fear kept him awake and moving all night. Whenever he stopped to rest, the sigh of the wind or the shadow over the moon would start his heart pounding, and he'd move on. He knew he could not escape if the night demons found him, but moving eased the fear. He plodded on after sunrise until he found a spring. He drank lightly and leaned against a rock until his body cooled, and he could drink again. When he woke, it was late afternoon. Fray Marcos and two grinning Pima stood over him. Every traveler stopped at water. If he had slept anywhere else, he would have missed them. Assured that Esteban would wait, Fray Marcos once more stopped in the villages to ask questions. Chaco was glad of the delay. He could not forget Esteban's face when the unspoken word slave had hung between them. Not even Esteban could forgive him that. As they neared Esteban's camp, Chaco lagged in the rear, ashamed to face Esteban. He need not have worried. Nothing remained on the riverbank but the black circles of the campfires. "But he promised to wait," said Chaco. "Why would he leave?" "Because he has run away." The priest's voice was bitter. "What else could I expect of a slave?" Chaco stared at him. Of course a slave would run away. Hadn't he himself told Esteban that a slave with any sense of honor should try to escape even if it meant death from his captors? How then could he blame Esteban for fleeing to the buffalo people? His thoughts were interrupted by the sight of two Indians coming toward them on the trail. Between them, they bore another huge cross, and again Chaco wondered why. He knew Esteban had heard nothing new of Cibola. Aunt Maria had already told him all anyone in her village knew, and one of the messengers was from that village. Why send the oversized cross that meant great news? Surely Esteban knew it would bring Fray Marcos on the run. Why keep the priest on the trail if he was deserting? At sight of the second large cross, Fray Marcos tucked his robes around his waist and set a pace that would have awed an antelope. Chaco trotted ahead, scouting and worrying. Did the cross mean that Esteban would wait at Aunt Maria's? For Esteban had promised to wait. No, he had not said he would wait. He said he would lead Fray Marcos to Cibola. Was that another curve on Esteban's shaft of honor? Did he mean he would keep just ahead of them on the trail to Cibola? The thought should have made him happy, but the feeling it aroused were too strange and confused for Chaco to understand. He almost hoped Esteban was far up the river to the buffalo people, stealing the freedom Dorantes had promised and refused. Another part of him feared what Mexico would be like if Esteban had deserted and their mission failed. Would the viceroy have him branded on the cheek and sent to work on the cathedral? Surely Fray Marcos would not permit that. But the three señors had returned in triumph from an impossible journey, and look what happened to them and to Esteban. Esteban was a slave, Chaco told himself. Another voice inside him whispered, "And you are only an Indian like the Aztecs." With each step, his feelings changed from hope that Esteban was leading them to Cibola to fear that he was not. The mixed with both And mixed with both was the thought that Esteban deserved his freedom. But not this way, he whispered to himself. Not after he promised, not Esteban. But he wasn't sure. Fray Marcos had taken no time from the trail that day for food. Chaco's stomach rumbled, and he thought longingly of Brother Solano's heaping platters of food. But he did not remind Fray Marcos to eat. He was too eager to reach the village. Even if Esteban was not waiting, Aunt Maria would know which trail he had taken.